Hello.
Hello, Dean. You're a stupid head.
Homer, is that you?
Hey, it's Deanofcool again, back with some more Kaldheim spoilers. Apologies if this video finds itself a little late. I've been devoting most of my time to playing Cyberpunk, and I'm a little surprised, to be honest, that some spoilers have come out already for Kaldheim. I wouldn't have expected anything until January, maybe a couple over Christmas, but as of Friday the 18th of December 2020, this is what's been released so far. Before I get into the spoilers, I'd just like to say, please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy the video and like to see more. It really helps out my channel, and the better my channel gets, the more equipment I'll be able to afford, and therefore with a better quality. Thank you. First up, we have the rest of the dual lands that was featured in Zendikar Rising. We knew these were coming, Mario said they were coming. There's nothing really to say about them, and we know everything there is to know about them, apart from obviously the art is very beautiful. Other than that, not much else to say. Let's move on. Next we have Showdown of the Skulls. Sagas seem to be returning, which is great. It seems like a logical fit to me of where sagas can be included. It's 2 generic, a red and a white, so 4 mana for exile the top 4 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn you may play those cards, and chapter 2 and 3 is whenever you cast a spell this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Pretty good. It's more of what Red's getting at the moment, the impulsive card draw and some bonus +1/+1 counters for casting spells that you already would be doing anyway. Yeah, seems pretty good. Next up we have Pyro of Heroes. It's a 2-cost artifact that reads pay 2, tap and sack a creature. Search your library for a creature card that shares a creature type with the sacrificed creature and has converted mana cost equal to 1 plus that creature's converted mana cost. Put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Activate this ability only any time you could cast a sorcery. This card is insane. It's basically Birthing Pod that fits into any colour deck. Obviously it has to share a creature type, so it's going to benefit in tribal, but this is going to be a commander staple without a doubt. Every tribal deck is going to want this. Every single one. It's crazy. Next up we have Valkyrie Harbringer. It's a 4 generic and 2 white, so 6 cost for a 4/5 flying lifelink angel cleric. At the beginning of each end step, if you gain 4 or more life this turn, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. There's already quite a lot of this gaining 4/4 flying angels in standard at the moment, and a lot of life gain, so this is going to be more of the same. Maybe a bit too much in the current standard for my liking, but hey, it's white, so what can you do? Next up we have Searchland Elementalist. It's 5 generic and 2 blue, so 7 mana for a 8/8 giant wizard. As an additional cost to cast this spell, reveal a giant card from your hand or pay 2 generic extra. When Searchland Elementalist attacks, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand without paying its mana cost. It's a very powerful ability. I really like this ability and I quite like the card. However, it kind of reminds me of the Titan cycle, but they were each 6 mana to cast a Titan, and this is 9 mana if you don't have a giant in hand. Obviously feeding off a giant synergy and giant tribal would work fine, but I think it's just too expensive in mana cost. 7 mana normal or 9 mana if you don't have another giant might be just too steep a cost. Next we have Cleaving Reaper. It's 3 generic and 2 black for a 5/3 angel berserker with flying and trample. Pay 3 life, return Cleaving Reaper from your graveyard to your hand. Activate this ability only if you had an angel or berserker enter the battlefield under your control this turn. More tribal synergy between angels and berserkers. Going to be good in limited and standard. Probably won't see much play outside of that. It's not a bad card though, I quite like it. Next we have Searchland, which is 3 generic and 2 red for a 4/6 giant berserker. Whenever Searchland attacks, you may sacrifice another creature. When you do, Searchland deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to any target. If the sacrificed creature was a giant, Searchland deals twice that much damage instead. So it looks like a cycle of berserkers that are going to cost 5 mana each in each colour, and this has fling on a creature, basically with giant tribal synergy stuck on top. I actually love this card. I think it's great. I think this is going to actually see quite a lot of play, both in standard and in commander as well. Good card. Next up we have Canopy Tactician, which costs 3 generic and a green for a 3/3 elf warrior that says other elves you control get +1/+1 and tap to add 3 green mana. Now, this is pretty good for the elf tribal synergy that's going off in standard at the moment, and I realise none of the others are in standard, but do we really need another one of these? I mean, we have Gwynn, Elvish Archdruid, Elvish Champion, Imperious Perfect. There's so many elf lords at the moment. I really don't think we need another one to add to that. Elves are already good. They got a lot of support already. In terms of commander cards, this is going to be played, but it just isn't needed. It really isn't. So a little disappointed about that. Next up we have Armed and Armoured, which costs 1 generic and 1 white for an instant that reads, vehicles you control become artifact creatures until end of turn. Choose a dwarf you control, attach any number of equipment you control to it. So a dwarven specific tribal card which allows you to attach equipment for free and can make your vehicles become creatures without needing to crew them. Interesting card. I could see this getting some play in standard, definitely. Next up is Stonheim Aspirant, which costs 2 generic and 1 white for a 2/2 human cleric that says angel spells you cast cost 2 less to cast. So more angel support for angel tribal synergy. It's going to get a lot of play in commander, I'd imagine, for all those angel decks out there. Yeah, this is an auto include. It's only free to put down and makes all your angels cost less. Why would you not play this? Next we have Chanter Skulls, 2 generic and 1 white for a 2/3 dwarf cleric that says whenever Chanter Skull becomes tapped, if it's enchanted or equipped, create a 2/1 red dwarf berserker creature token. So more dwarf tribal stuff. Pretty interesting. Don't know if it'll see much play out of standard though. Next we have Youthful Valkyrie, which is 1 generic and 1 white for a 1/3 angel with flying. It says whenever another angel enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Youthful Valkyrie. More angel tribal synergy stuff again. I'd imagine this is probably an auto include in most angel decks, I guess. Now we have Absorb Identity, which is 1 generic and 1 blue for an instant that reads, return target creature to its owner's hand. You may have shapeshifters you control become copies of that creature until end of turn. What an interesting card. It bounces something and all your clones get to be a copy of it until the end of turn. This seems like a really good card, really powerful ability in clone decks. Yeah, this is definitely going to see a lot of play. Now we have Giant's Grasp, which is 2 generic and 2 blue for enchantment aura. Enchant giant you control. Whenever Giant Grasp enters a battlefield, gain control of target non-land permanent for as long as Giant's Grasp remains on the battlefield. So as long as the giant that it's enchanting it stays alive, or manages to stay alive, it will stick around and you'll have control of whatever it is that you've taken, which can be any non-land permanent. It can be artifact, enchantment, planeswalker. This seems really powerful. It's going to be an absolute bomb in limited, without a doubt. And might even see some play outside of that as well, I think. It's a pretty unique card, pretty niche, but quite a lot of fun. Next up we have Elderfang Ritualist, which is 2 generic and a black for a 3/1 elf cleric that reads, whenever Elderfang Ritualist dies, return another target elf card from your graveyard to your hand. So it's good elf recursion in the black-green elf decks. Yeah, it's pretty good. I like this card. Next we have Renegade Reaper, which is 2 generic and a black for a 2/3 angel berserker with flying. Whenever Renegade Reaper enters the battlefield, mill 4 cards. If at least 1 angel card is milled this way, you gain 4 life. Nice to see some more angels in black. I haven't seen that for quite a while. Great in limited. You've got the other angel, which reads whenever you gain 4 life, make a 4/4 flying angel. So that's a combo with that card straight away. Yeah, I can see this getting a lot of play. Good in limited, probably good in commander as well. Next we have Thorn Mantle Striker, which is 4 generic and 1 black for a 4/3 elf rogue that reads whenever Thorn Mantle Striker enters the battlefield, choose 1. Remove X counters from target permanent where X is the number of elves you control, or target creature an opponent control gets -X until end of turn where X is the number of elves you control. So this is removal for a creature or something that has counters on it, such as a planeswalker for the black-green elf tribal deck. Yeah, this is great utility, probably something that is needed in black-green elves. So yeah, I like this card a lot. This is going to see a lot of play. Next up we have Bearded Axe, which is 2 generic and 1 red for artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each dwarf, equipment and vehicle you control, and it costs 2 to equip. So it's a little expensive to put down and equip, but it's going to bump up all of your dwarfs in your dwarf tribal deck. Yeah, it's pretty standard fare, I think. It's nothing to shout about, but yeah, it's going to see play. Next we have Fire Giant's Fury, which is 1 generic and 1 red for a sorcery that reads target giant you control gets +2/+2 and gains trample until end of turn. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player this turn, exile that many cards from the top of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play those cards. Now, specifically it says play, not cast, so if it's lands you'll still be able to play them, and this is definitely going to see some play, and it's more of the red impulsive draw that we've been seeing of late. But I don't really like these types of cards. They're so situational. Yeah, your giant's probably already big and it's going to make it even bigger and gain trample, but you're not guaranteed to do any damage to your opponent anyway, so this is either going to do a lot or nothing, or depending on the situation. Now we have Gilded Assault Cart, which is 1 generic and 2 red for an artifact vehicle, which is a 5/1 with trample and crew 2. Also says sacrifice 2 treasures, return Gilded Assault Cart from your graveyard to your hand. I quite like this sacrifice 2 treasures to get it back mechanic. That's quite flavourful, and the crew 2 is pretty cheap, and it's quite cheap in itself to get down, so yeah, I can see this getting play. Next we have Elven Ambush, which is 3 generic and 1 green for an instant that reads, create a 1/1 green elf warrior creature token for each elf you control. This is an uncommon, really. This card is insanely powerful. There's going to be so many elves on the board in the elf deck. It's going to be impossible to deal with in limited, strong in standard, and we'll definitely see play in other formats, older formats like Vintage. Elves are already so strong, there's already so easy to get so many elves onto the battlefield, they're so cheap. This card is just going to accelerate the elf deck out of control. Next we have Glade Ritualist, which is 2 generic and a green for a 3/3 shapeshifter with Changeling, which means this card is every creature type. When another creature named Glade Ritualist enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. So we're now getting shapeshifter changelings in green as a fairly common creature type. This is kind of interesting. It's going to draw you a card in limited or standard if you have multiple. So yeah, this is quite an interesting card. I can see it getting some play definitely. Now we have Rampage of the Valkyries, which is 3 generic, 1 white and 1 black for an enchantment that says, when it enters the battlefield, create a 4/4 white angel token with flying and vigilance, and whenever an angel you control dies, each other player sacrifices a creature. This seems extremely powerful for an uncommon. I mean, it is 5 mana, so there is that. More synergy for angels and in black and white, that's good. It's basically Grave Pact kind of effect, but for black white angels. Yeah, this is going to see some play. It's an extremely powerful mechanic. Next we have Magna Brazen Outlaw for 1 generic and 1 red. It's a 2/1 legendary creature dwarf berserker. It says other dwarfs you control get +1/+0, and whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, create a treasure token. Sacrifice 5 treasure tokens, search your library for an artifact or dragon card, put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Yeah, I like this card. It's got a lot of different overlappings. It's got Dwarven synergy, which is going to pump all your dwarves, and it also can find yourself a dragon. Yeah, this card's cool. I like this card a lot. Then we have Realm Walker, which is 2 generic and 1 green for a 2/3 shapeshifter with Changeling, which means that this card is every creature type. And as Realm Walker enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. You may look at the top card of your library at any time, and you may cast creature spells of the chosen type from the top of your library. So again, an auto include in tribal decks. This is basically very cheaply costed, undercosted, only 3 mana for a 2/3 with an ability that lets you play creatures from the top of your deck. Very, very powerful. Definitely going to see play in Commander. Next we have a Planeswalker, which is Kea the Inexorable. I don't know how you pronounce that. It's 3 generic, 1 white and 1 black for a Planeswalker that starts with 5 loyalty. First ability is a +1 that says put a ghost form counter on up to 1 target non-token creature it gains when this creature dies or is put into exile. Return it to its owner's hand and create a 1/1 spirit creature token with flying. As -3 exile target non-land permanent, and -7 you get an emblem with, at the beginning of your upkeep you may cast a legendary spell from your hand, from your graveyard, from among cards you own in exile without paying its mana cost. This, as you would expect, Mythic Planeswalkers to be very powerful. You can bounce your opponent's stuff and guarantee you still get a creature. You can bounce your own stuff and get a token. It's extremely powerful. It's got the ability to do the first thing it needs to do on its second ability, and its ultimate is just probably just going to win you the game outright, as it probably should. Yeah, really powerful. I like this card. Next we have one of the new modal double face cards, which is on one side Halvar, God of Battle, which is 2 generic and 2 white for a legendary creature god. Creatures you control that are enchanted or equipped have double strike, and at the beginning of each combat you may attach target aura or equipment attached to target creature you control And its other face is Sword of the Realms, which is 1 generic and 1 white for a legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has vigilance, and whenever equipped creature dies, return it to its owner's hand. It has an equip cost of 1 generic and 1 white. Now, a couple of things here. I really like the ability of being able to switch auras and equipments from one creature to another. Definitely need more of that ability in white. It's only on a couple of other cards. Extremely good. I like that it's got that. But it's a god, and it's only a 4/4. And it's not indestructible like the other ones we've seen, or comes back in any way. This god is so weak compared to the other gods. I just don't understand why it's so weak in white when they know that white needs better cards. It's just a 4/4. It's pretty weak for a god, isn't it? I mean, aren't gods supposed to be much more powerful than that? And the other face, the equipment side, is pretty good. It bounces something back to your hand, so your creature's not guaranteed to die. I can see this getting in play, yeah, definitely, but if this is what the other gods are like, I'm extremely underwhelmed. And tons of people out there making God's tribal deck, I don't think this is going to go in it for a 4/4. It seems pretty poor. And lastly, we have Sarulf Realm Eater. This is the card that was shown as a miniature named Cosmo Wolf last time, so obviously the Cosmo Wolf wasn't its real name. Its actual name is this, and it's only a 3/3, so it's not quite as big as I thought it was going to be. It's a 1 generic, 1 black and 1 green for a 3/3 legendary wolf. Whenever opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Sarulf Realm Eater, and at the beginning of your upkeep, so if Sarulf has 1 or more +1/+1 counters on it, you remove all of them. If you do, exile each other non-land permanent with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of counters removed this way. So it's basically Ugin's second ability on a creature in green and black for 3 mana. That seems pretty broken. We already know that Ugin's extremely powerful, especially in the standard meta. It's equally as powerful in Commando, I'm sure. I don't know why you want to exile your own stuff necessarily, but and obviously if it has over 3 counters, it's also going to exile Sarulf himself, but just completely obliterating and exiling everything on the board when it's got a few counters on it. If it's only got 1 or 2 and just getting rid of all the nuisance 1s and 2 drops that your opponent has, and it's every non-land permanent, not just creatures. Yeah, this is really powerful, and I can see some quite horrid combos coming out of this in future. So that's everything that's been released so far as of Thursday, December the 17th. As I said at the beginning of the video, if you could please subscribe to my channel, it's a big help. I know I'm a small channel, but I'm trying to grow and get better. I'm going to try and keep on top of this in the future, in between playing Cyberpunk obviously. And if you subscribe, I'll let you know of any new videos coming out with all the latest stuff. Thank you.